Welcome to Spotlight on Student Government. I'm John Schulter. This week, freshmen voted for their fellow students running for class office. Let's take a look at the voting process.
Tons of students came out to both Daly's and the Commuters Lounge to vote for their fellow freshmen.
Everything's going pretty well today. Freshmen are really responsive to the voting. It's really convenient for them, so I think they like it a lot that it's in Daly's. We've gotten a lot of votes already. We're here till 6, so we'll probably get a lot more. People are pretty positive about it. A lot of candidates, which is great.
Since they were freshmen, they were trying to get noticed in any way possible.
We're handing out chocolate kisses, and for the guys, we're putting on red lipstick and giving them kisses on the cheeks, so they're kind of campaigning for us. So it's cool, it's fun.
It wasn't just like the posters, but it was like chalk written all around the school, so it was cool that it wasn't just on paper, but it was like you look around and you'd see people's names on the sidewalk. It was neat.
Some students, however, seemed like they had a hard time to figure out who to vote for.
Thought whoever was the nicest, really. It wasn't trying too hard, but I knew they'd really do a good job.
We try to inform them as just vote for the ones that you feel most confident with, or if you don't know anything, just vote. We just want the numbers right now and see. We try to inform everyone in the years ahead.
From the Rider University Network, I'm John Schulter.
Now let's go to an interview with SGA President Laura Vendetta, conducted by our own Brian Persons.
We have the SGA President Laura Vendetta here in the studio. How are you doing, Laura?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So, I hear that we had the freshman elections this past week.
Correct.
How did they run?
Well, they started campaigning about a week ago. We had a lot of opponents come out, a lot of freshmen. We had 4 running for president, 3 for vice president, and then 4 for treasurer. So very good races and very close races at that. We actually had an increase in voter turnout as well. Last year we had about 150 freshmen vote, and this year it was up to about 325. So compared to last year, we had a very substantial turnout. But it was a great election, very hard fought. But yeah, we now have Hazma Abushaban as our freshman class president, and then Rob Gray as the vice president, and then Mitch Buwan Pastore as our treasurer. So very great students and very eager to serve their freshman class and then Rider as a whole.
What kind of things can the freshman class do as a whole, those positions? What can they do?
Their main target is to fundraise, essentially working up, raising more money to essentially they get to the point when their senior year, when they have a lot of senior events, whether it be senior ball, a lot of senior pub nights, and then also their class gift to the university. So essentially the roles of the class council are to fundraise as a class and build up as much money as they can fundraise for their senior year and to give back to the university essentially. However, they do take part in events on campus. There is a class council that includes all 4 classes on campus have a Halloween dance. So that is coming up, and that's all run by all the class councils. But they also take part in Senate and President's Cabinet as well. So they not only input to those meetings as freshmen, but they do serve their students as leaders in events and then other areas, fundraising.
Now, the Student Government Show had the opportunity to go to the Senate this week, and one of the people, Debbie Sassola, was able to explain that the freshmen had different perceptions about the alcohol policy. Is that the same as the whole campus, or are their perceptions just different because they're underage? What do you have to say about that?
I think there are mixed perceptions. I think that the freshmen perhaps came in here considering college as the typical, stereotypical college experience, expecting that. And there has been monumental change on campus since last year. So I think everyone, the university as a whole, all the students are still adjusting to that change, and it's a pretty significant change to go from one extreme to another. So I think as a whole, the student body is struggling to accept that change and adapt where they need to. However, I think in regards to the freshmen, they are still struggling to realize that it isn't the experience as is often perceived or that they personally expected.
Going a little bit deeper into the alcohol policy, seniors are given $1 mugs at the pub. How is the pub going to take it upon themselves to make sure that binge drinking does not occur? Let's say a person goes in with $10. What are they going to have? They're going to try to get 10 drinks. How can you expect the university to handle this?
Well, the main initiative behind the senior mugs is, again, like I mentioned before, is all to fundraise for the senior class. So all the profits they earn from those mugs go directly to the senior class, go into their senior ball. All goes essentially back to the seniors and then to the university, what's left. However, when it comes to the whole dollar mug thing, beer thing, that responsibility is on also the student as personal responsibility, which is also stressed in the source. However, it's also stressed a lot on the bartenders and the pub staff, that they moderate how much a person's drinking. Now, it's fine to go in there and drink since you are of age. However, excessive drinking is not accepted or approved by the university. So in that aspect, the pub managers, which are university employees essentially, are really to monitor that and to make sure that no one's binge drinking. And then that's also why we have monitors at the pub, and then also additional staff such as public safety. So those dollar mugs doesn't necessarily support binge drinking. However, it's another incentive for seniors to support their senior class, and almost an earned privilege. You know, as a junior, you may be 21 and you go in and you wait for your senior mug, you know, and it's something you take with you after a rider. However, when it comes to binge drinking, it's also for the student personal responsibility, their friend personal responsibility, and then as a pub staff employee, it's just monitoring the drinking.
So let's say a person with a senior mug goes in, gets one beer in their mug, and comes back to their bathroom and throws up. An RD walks in, hears them throwing up, and is that considered binge drinking then? And how does the responsibility of them getting sick go into the sanctions?
Well, I think that's a tough situation in any aspect. It would have to deal with maybe other situations. I don't think anyone could really throw up strictly from alcohol after one beer, unless there's other things involved with it, whether it be you're sick or it's just because you drank beforehand as well. I think in that regard, the pub staff would have done what their job was to monitor the student's intake. So the student did not binge drink under their supervision. So they only had one beer. And again, it would have to depend on the student. However, I think it would go back to personal responsibility. If they are of age, then the RD is there obliged to get them help. But overall, I think it's a come as it goes situation.
Case by case.
Exactly. It would have to be further investigated, and just to see what exactly was involved in that situation. But I think in that aspect, the pub employee would have done what they were supposed to do. They monitored the drinking, and they made sure that it wasn't a result of their actions.
Okay, I can take that. And going a little bit deeper, let's say a person gets incredibly intoxicated, and a friend is there with them. How does the Good Samaritan policy really work?
Well,
how is a student protected in that?
In that regard, the Good Samaritan policy was designed to educate students about the extreme consequences of binge drinking. So the Good Samaritan policy is kind of almost an initiative to make sure your friend gets help. That if they are so intoxicated to the point where they need medical assistance, this is to really help them just go and get them help immediately, not really contemplate, as some people may be inclined to do, whether you don't want to get your friend in trouble or you don't want to hurt their potential career. You said you came to Senate, and Debbie did make mention to that issue, saying You don't want to get them in trouble and hurt their future career. When you really have to balance your future career or your life, it's a pretty different stake you're holding. However, it also does not show up on your criminal record, which is a good thing that students might want to know. But also, it's really just there to educate students to get their friends help. Now, under that Good Samaritan policy, it is, like you mentioned, it's a case-by-case situation. However, what the Good Samaritan policy says is that if you get your friend help and they are needed medical assistance, you will not be charged under the university alcohol policy. Now, you will have to go through some education courses just for your own safety and health. However, that does not mean that you are you could not potentially be fined by the township. That's all state regulated. So you could potentially be fined by the township. However, when it comes to the university policies, they would waiver, basically, those fees with the exception of the education program that you would have to go through.
Thank you. Now, also, going into the Tier 1 and Tier 2 violations, I've noticed that a standard first thing that they say is there's a parental notification. What is the reasoning behind that?
I think just to keep your parents informed of your child's health. Now, you come to school and you are of age, legally an adult. However, these are your caregivers. They send you to college expecting for you to obtain an education. However, it is good for the parents to know this information, I feel, so that they can probably help as well. I don't think that's just a thing the university should take on by themselves. They should be given the utmost help that they could possibly receive. And I think that's just another way of showing students that the university does care for your well-being and overall your health and safety. And you know, it may sound cruel and very juvenile, but I think the objective of it is the main point in putting that in.
Also at Senate, there was an issue where students were going off campus and people were getting arrested. How does that fall under the jurisdiction of Rider University and the alcohol policy?
It doesn't necessarily fall under the alcohol policy. However, in the source, it does say that the university can take action if you disobey any law. So you are disobeying state laws. And so if the township does report back to the university that this was in fact a Rider University student, you can be fined underneath the university for simply disobeying the law, more or less. And then depending on the situation, whatever, if it was drinking or another thing, you can be charged underneath the university sanctions.
Now, going back to that, how are you keeping people on campus? Are you trying to do more under 21 nights at the pub, or what other events are you trying to do to keep people on campus? There's
so many things that are going in and out, you know, in discussion, so many events that are going on that we're trying, in addition to the 18 to enter, 21 to drink nights at the pub. I think that was relatively a great response to students. However, there are still issues that we need to work out with that. Student organizations can also rent out the pub of no cost, of course. The university covers the staff for the pub and also the security. However, you can come and have, let's say, a sorority and fraternity can come and have their own mixer there. It can be a private guest list or it can be an open guest list. But that's an opportunity for students to have a social event with alcohol, 18-year-olds, underage students as well in attendance, and drink in a safe environment. There's also other events as well. We're enhancing a lot of the weekend programming. The new Starbucks is a great facility to have more events in. Bronc bingos, Bronc buffets, off-campus trips. There are so many things in the making that are going to really give students more of an opportunity to do other activities on campus rather than be obliged to drink.
Well, thank you, Laura, so much.
Thank you, no problem.
This has been Laura Vendetta, SGA president. Hopefully the rest of the campus will be more aware about the alcohol policy.
I'm John Schulter, and from all of us at Channel 20, have a great week.